Jimmy Corcoran and Ardruni party coming up here, and it's a bit strange listening to all the Ulster dialect today. My Munster Irish seems to get lost in it, but General Secretary of the Communist Party, Jimmy Corcoran. So a little bit to say. I think the title of the discussion, The Lessons from History and the Future of Irish Republic of the 21st Century, is quite appropriate because we learn from experience, we test our policies and strategies, and we adapt or reject them based on experience. So it's right to learn from the past in order to chart a way forward. And I think as this morning has shown, we don't all view history in the same light, so history itself can become an arena of struggle. The Communist Party, from studying and applying the ideas and experiences of Lenin and Connolly, the Communist Party believes in the interconnectedness of the struggles for social and national independence. We always believe that each area of struggle is dependent on and affects the other. The party recognised the historic role of Irish republicanism in unifying progressive forces in opposition to British imperialism. And like republicanism, we share a common view in identifying British imperialism in Ireland as violent, sectarian, repressive and fundamentally undemocratic, based as it is on the continued repression of the democratic wishes of the Irish people. And also we believe that opposition to our acceptance of colonial power has been and continues to be the defining line between reform and revolution in Irish politics. Now, the Communist Party would argue that a historical weakness of republicanism has been its lack of a clear understanding of class struggle as the driver of Irish politics and its centrality to radical social change, because it was a movement that was based on cross-class coalition. As a result, we think it failed to grasp that separation from Britain will not necessarily be followed by progressive reorganisation of society. That's not to say there hasn't always been a social republican tradition or Republican movement, which, like the Communist Party, it was clear that imperialism is a function of capitalism and all struggles under capitalism are class struggles. However, that has always been a minority view, and for some, socialism has not been clearly defined. And I think, as we heard this morning from some people, republicanism has not been clearly defined either, because which seems to be an ongoing thing. So, if we are to learn from history, I suppose, in particular, if we look at the victory of the Free State, and we look at, we said, the Good Friday Agreement, we won't get very far if we sort of lay all the blame on individuals who were traitors and use the struggle of others as sort of self-advancement. No, I'm not saying that didn't exist, but I think we have to look deeper into the class forces involved. As well, Connolly wanted a socialist republic, but he was prepared to unite with the volunteers even though their aim was not the same as his. He was aware that they might settle for less than a socialist republic, but he was prepared to walk with them while they were travelling the same road until such time as their objectives clashed. Unfortunately, Connolly did not leave behind a party to continue his politics, and the War of Independence was fought for political and not social and economic independence. The interests of the working class and small farmers didn't feature in the treaty debates. Yes, the debates they dealt with sovereignty and the empire, but not with the economic basis of the link to imperialism. Even during the war in the defence of the Republic, the newly formed Communist Party, admittedly, was quite small, but they tried to convince Liam Lynch to adopt a socialist Republican programme to rally the workers and small farmers to the Republic. They failed. So the Republic was defeated, not because of that, but the Republic was defeated by a coalition of British imperial forces, sectarian reactionaries, and the most parasitic dependent elements of the national bourgeoisie within and without the Republican movement. Without going much into the Good Friday Agreement, but it's just the latest attempt by British imperialism to increase its influence and control over the whole of Ireland. This has been the objective of the British ruling class ever since it was partitioned the country in 1921 and was forced to militarily and politically withdraw from the 20th counties. The Communist Party of Ireland welcomed the unilateral ceasefire declared by the IRA, maintained that the ceasefire did not mean the abandonment of the anti-imperialist struggle, but rather could move onto new terrain, the possibility of mass mobilisation of demands for democracy and sovereignty. However, as we know, the Republican movement failed to use the new situation to develop mass mobilisation behind demands for national economic and social advance, preferred instead to take part in negotiations with representatives of British, the US and EU imperialism. It's interesting, it's like the point that Fergal made earlier about the secret deals going on, so we could see it writ large there. So over the course of negotiations, the imperialist powers were key. The US in particular playing a crucial role, and Irish Americans, who were totally in tune with the aims of US foreign policy globally, were central to the process. The Irish government's role was to reassure Republicans that they had their backs, were honest brokers and a guarantor of national interest in the 6 counties, while at the same time ensuring that nothing really changed. As we know, the institutions and the process established under the Good Friday Agreement represent a high point for British imperial achievement, in not only gaining national and international acceptance for its racial and sectarian narrative about Ireland, but in recruiting large sections of the Republican movement to that acceptance. Meanwhile, the Irish state abandoned Articles 2 and 3 of the Republic's constitution, which provided a constitutional underpinning to the democratic right of the Irish people as a whole to unity and independence. The economic and political needs of the Irish ruling class had been secured with the 21 political and constitutional settlement, and they were only too happy to delete Articles 2 and 3, which were seen as an unwanted baggage from our anti-colonial past and a hindrance to ever closer links with British imperialism. In their place is an acceptance of partition and the British control of the six counties. So we are now for republicanism. So it depends on what Republican sees as its core objectives. Is it simply a 32-county republic? Does it matter if that republic is a member of the EU? Does it matter if the republic is a member of NATO? And does it even matter if that republic joins the Commonwealth? As a result of the acceptance of the Good Friday Agreement, Sinn Féin has moved from an anti to pro-imperialist position. Its leadership is prepared to accept United Ireland within the EU as an end in itself, and they also seem prepared to accept NATO membership, which may seriously weaken the struggle to defend Irish neutrality. But it would not be an independence as Connolly would have recognised it. As he pointed out, an Irish state which is still capitalist, while it may have the trappings of political independence, will remain subject to the will of imperialism and is therefore not independent. The Communist Party of Ireland believes that Brexit created opportunities for progressive advance in the national question. Brexit destabilised the political settlement in the six counties, the protocol, and the Windsor framework, and the weakening of the East-West economic power relations between the six counties in Britain opened up the potential to develop greater all-Ireland economic and social demands around which the working class North and South could campaign. As Britain and the EU struggled over the details of Britain's future trading relationship and access to EU markets, positions and interests shared by both imperialist blocs and the Irish ruling class were shattered. The protocol is part of that inter-imperialist struggle over Britain's access to the EU single market. Its provisions have opened up contradictions for most imperialist centres. It has the potential to weaken the East-West relationship between six counties in Britain, as Britain in effect cedes economic control to the EU. Now, neither the Irish ruling class nor the unions were involved in negotiations on the protocol other than as bid players. That, coupled with the last storm of election, which saw Sinn Féin emerge as the largest party, was a blow to unionism. However, this weakening of unionism should not be presented as a democratic advance because, as a result of the Good Friday Agreement, Sinn Féin is now vying with unionism for the role of cheap administrator of British rule in the North, within a political system which has institutionalised sectarianism as its modus operandi. As a result, the protocol, sections of the unionist community, including the unionist working class, have accused the British of betrayal. However, in at least the short to medium term, that's unlikely to lead into any reassessment of their position in Ireland. For well over 100 years they've been fed in the diet of supremacy and sectarianism, and their response, if any, to what they see as a British betrayal is likely to involve attacks, verbal and possibly physical, on the Catholic community who they perceive to be their enemies. And as loyal as paramilitaries control many Protestant working class communities, it is unlikely the voices in favour of unity will emerge from that quarter. However, at the same time, it's important that democratic forces engage with the unionist community, and in particular the working class, to try and convince them that it is in their self-interest to positively influence how any possible reunification takes place and in whose interests. The transformative demands for an all-Ireland public housing, health, education and industrial strategy hold the potential to draw sections of the Protestant working class into all-Ireland struggles, which can develop into an anti-imperialist direction. Now that fills the Irish bourgeoisie with terror. In the century since partition, the Irish ruling class have become Britain's main allies in Ireland, and they're quite content with the existing situation and their links to the UK, US and EU imperialism. They certainly do not want to destabilise their relationship with imperialism in case it undermines their control of the Irish state. If the demand for reunification looks likely to cede, the Irish ruling class will be determined that it comes about on terms designed to keep them in place. And I suppose the reality of the balance of class forces at the moment in the country internationally means that any moves towards Irish reunification will more than likely be on terms determined by imperialism. That does not mean that we have to meekly accept that Labour must wait once again. The Communist Party of Ireland believes that mobilising the working class and family farmers behind demands for national economic and social advance will build unity and can help tilt the balance of forces in favour of the working class and move towards an anti-imperialist position. If republicanism is to be relevant in the 21st century, the concept of the republic must resonate with people. It must mean something. It must mean more than just a 32-county state. It must be imbued with a social content. When one mentions the republic, people must know that it stands for a specific type of society. Republicanism is not for a republic where vulture funds control housing. It is not for a state where multinational mining corporations destroy our environment. And it's not a republic which sends troops abroad to support imperialism and allows US military bases on its territory. The struggle for national independence is an anti-imperialist and an anti-capitalist struggle. The battleground is the hearts and minds of the people. And republicanism and the struggle for national independence, liberation still resonate within the Irish people. The task for republicans is to give it a clear class perspective. To be relevant, republicanism must be involved with the struggles of the working class and family farmers against the capitalist class. These struggles must not be seen simply as add-ons to build up a support base for republicans, but as an integral part of the struggle to undo the conquest and shape the struggle for independence. Our ultimate goal must not be a republic, or a workers' republic. Anything else less is not independence. Thank you.